Okay, welcome everyone to our first in a series of Maine Aquaculture Innovation Centre webinars. It's very exciting to have you all here. And this was originally conceived as a webinar series for aquaculturists in Maine as a way of disseminating applied research and new products out to our farmers in Maine, but we're very excited and kind of blown away at just how popular this has proven to be internationally. We've actually had over 100 people register internationally from 19 different countries, and we're excited to welcome you all to our webinar series. This is, as I said, the first, and we will be holding webinars on the third Friday of every month from 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next month will be on March the 17th, and will be Mitch Lench from Oceans Balance reporting out on some of his travels to Norway and some of the lessons he's learned from Norwegian colleagues in the sea vegetable farming sector. Today we have Tricia Labbe from Atlantic Corporation. Unfortunately, her colleague Ray Bernier was unable to make it today because he's unwell. So Tricia's going to take it on, and she's going to give us a demonstration of some of the free to use market research tools that they have developed at Atlantic Corporation in collaboration with us at the Maine Aquaculture Innovation Centre. And so welcome, Tricia.
Thank you, Annie. I do want to thank Annie, Chris, and everyone at MAIC for inviting me today, especially for the first presentation of their lunchtime webinar series. So as Annie said, my name is Tricia Labbe. I'm our research manager here at Atlantic, and I'll be presenting today. We're going to start out with a few slides, and then later in the presentation, I'll do some live demoing of our dashboards. And while I go through the slides, I am going to just stop my video to cut down on any distractions or anything like that. So let's get started. So before we dive into some of our most recent projects and the resulting tools, I did want to give a brief overview of who we are. So Atlantic Corporation was founded in 2013, and we're a leading R&D management firm. So we provide management at each stage of the R&D process for our clients. We've worked on various federal and state government contracts. We've also worked with a number of innovative small businesses and nonprofit research institutions. And we've managed projects for a number of small business innovation research, or SBIR Phase 1 and Phase 2 grant awardees. In addition to our usual client work, we also conduct our own research, specializing in measuring consumer demand for specific agriculture commodities and, of course, the aquaculture industry. And we've conducted 3 major studies that will kind of be our focus today. I also wanted to highlight at the top just a consistent issue that we've come across, and something that really drives our work at Atlantic. Many companies, especially in agriculture and aquaculture, tend to work from a supply-driven business model. In some instances, that system can work, but with supply-driven strategy, companies tend to make more inventory to make more money, which over time can drive prices down, leading to slimmer margins. This style is really focused on information about sales and inventory. And we've seen some companies fall into what's known as the law of diminishing returns, which you can see here. Just a theory that suggests, after a certain optimal point of production, if you input or invest more in one variable area like labor, while everything else stays the same, it can actually lead to proportionally lesser profits over time. So this is a concept that, again, drives our work at Atlantic. We really want to help businesses shift away from this more traditional business model to a market or demand-driven business model. So with demand or market-driven business models, they're influenced by market knowledge and real customer needs, kind of goes beyond traditional planning of just who is buying, and really looks at why customers are buying what they're buying and how they think about those purchasing decisions. It's all about building an accurate forecast based on data. At Atlantic, we understand that aquaculture is in many ways in its infancy. So there is opportunity to become more market or demand driven to avoid some of the pitfalls that we've seen. As far as we can tell, the strategy was first recommended for the aquaculture industry specifically in 1995 by Conrado Gempensau. The quote here on the slide is from Dan Burden in 2009 and kind of really sums up how to shift to a market or demand-driven business model. So utilizing market research, exploring value added or other attributes that can really set your products apart from the competition. So the surveys and tools that we'll be talking about today that we've developed with MAIC really help project unmet consumer demand, again, specifically for domestic farm-raised seafood. They can inform the development of seafood markets really at regional, sub-regional, and state levels, and allows for marketing of specific types of seafood to certain demographics. Just overall can help all industry stakeholders make more informed business decisions based on real data. So with that brief introduction to our work, we can talk about our first project. So this first project was funded by a grant awarded to us by the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission in 2018. The research for this award was focused on measuring consumer attitudes and preferences about farm-raised shellfish, finfish, and seaweed, specifically in the Atlantic States region. All the findings are available in a final report, and the descriptive statistics were built into an interactive data dashboard that is online. I did want to pull out a couple key findings from each project that we're going to talk about. Just a quick note that obviously this project was conducted pre-COVID-19, so there's a possibility that some of the findings might be different if we were to conduct it today. Either way, it can still provide some useful consumer insights. So first, we were able to measure participants' favored species. Just a couple points about that. The highest ranked species were Pacific Alaskan salmon, shrimp, and scallops. Overall, crustaceans were the category of seafood that participants reported being most available where they were, and that they preferred more to finfish, mollusk, and sea vegetables. We also asked participants a number of questions related to their willingness to pay a premium for certain species and for certain attributes. So for example, East Coast residents are willing to purchase more farm-raised finfish, shellfish, and sea vegetables if they're available than other areas. And kind of in conjunction with crustaceans being kind of the top-ranked seafood group, consumers are willing to spend the most on farm-raised crustaceans, supporting they're the most favored. We also asked consumers their willingness to pay a premium for farm-raised seafood by different production types. Consumers reported their highest willingness to spend more on either fresh seafood or locally produced seafood. Our survey also determined that consumers want to know where their seafood comes from. A combined 62% want to know either the country of origin or the US state that produced the product. And finally, we asked consumers various questions to gauge their knowledge of the industry and their perceptions of the impacts of aquaculture operations. Overall, respondents said nutrition is the top benefit of all types of aquaculture operations, but that local economies and food systems also benefit from aquaculture. And a third of respondents held neutral opinions regarding the benefits of aquaculture. And we thought this suggested that there might be opportunity to further educate consumers about the benefits of aquaculture and potentially increase their interest in farmed seafood overall. So that was a lot at once. There's a lot more to explore in these results, but I wanted to give you a snapshot of the type of information that we gathered. Moving to our second project. So this was a large project in collaboration with MAIC. It was through the USDA's Special Research Grant Program. So MAIC was awarded in 2020, and project is just now in the final stages of outreach and extension efforts. So we worked closely with MAIC to design and implement this survey, and a nationwide assessment of US consumer attitudes and preferences about domestic farm-raised seaweed. The survey targeted 20,000 US consumers. And again, we do have the full findings available online in both a data report and a data dashboard. And this one we'll really dive into during the live demonstration. Again, pulling out some of the key data in this survey. So again, it exclusively focused on domestic farm-raised seaweed, but through the results, we were able to determine a demographic profile of the typical seaweed consumer. So they tend to live closer to the coast, they're younger, and of higher education and income levels. Again, we also measured consumers' knowledge of seaweed species and their perceptions of seaweed quality, price, and availability. On average, consumers rated the quality of seafood products as sort of the most important attribute that affects their decision to purchase a product. Similar to Project One, consumers do desire to know where their seaweed product comes from. They want to know the origin at the country level. And they do perceive US produced seaweed products as highest quality compared to international seaweed products. They also indicated that seaweed that is directly marketed from a farm or harvester may increase their willingness to purchase a certain product as well. So this survey also provides insight on consumers' perceptions of farmed first harvested seaweed. The data shows 57.6% of consumers had really no preference between farm raised and wild harvested seaweeds, but consumers did perceive farmed seaweeds as safer to consume and more sustainable harvested varieties. Again, we measured consumers' willingness to purchase or pay a premium on a number of attributes and certifications or labels. The top ranked attribute affecting consumers' purchase habits was that the product is safe for consumption. And a US source certification was rated as having the highest effect on their willingness to purchase, while international was lowest ranked. So this supports the data that consumers do perceive seaweed products from the US as higher quality overall. So we'll take a look at some of these results again more in our dashboard demonstration. Moving to Project 3. This is our most recent project that we've been involved in. It was awarded by the USDA again through their AFRI program, so Agriculture and Food Research Initiative program. We were awarded in 2021 to administer choice experiment and survey to assess consumer willingness to purchase and market opportunities for domestic farm-raised finfish and shellfish. So this is sort of still in progress, not yet complete, but we should have the report up on our website within the next couple weeks, and we're hoping that the dashboard is complete within the next month or two. And again, just diving into what was gathered on this survey, similar to the previous two projects, but included gauging consumption habits and species preferences. Shrimp, salmon, and scallops were ranked as the most liked and eaten seafood species. Sort of at the bottom of that list were sturgeon, oysters, and mussels. The survey also evaluated consumer perceptions on the availability and quality of seafood species in their area, and with consumers rating shrimp, salmon, scallops, oysters, and clams as having the highest quality. So in measuring consumers' willingness to purchase farm-raised seafood in this survey, we found 68% to 84% of consumers are willing to purchase more if available, and that percentage range kind of depended on what species they were ranking. And finally, again, we gauged consumers' attitudes around product attributes and their willingness to pay a premium. About 80% of consumers said they were willing to pay premiums for farm-raised seafood from a US domestically produced or locally raised label. A large number also was willing to pay a premium for certified organic, fair trade, non-GMO, or third-party certified sustainable labels. Also of note, the majority of consumers indicated that they believe both farmed and wild seafood are healthy and safe foods. US consumers were more concerned about the environmental impact, sustainability, and welfare of wild fisheries rather than fish farming. Now that we've provided kind of a brief overview of all of our projects and the type of data that you can gather from those results, we can talk a little bit more about our data tools. So a common deliverable for many of Atlantic's projects are interactive data tools. So dashboards and GIS visualizations kind of provide enhanced data visibility. They help you, the end user, kind of achieve deeper insights. Because spatial information, both state and US economic regions, are kind of a significant component of the data that we collect. We often choose a GIS tool seen here to visually report our findings. So it's a great way to kind of quickly see differences across specific geographic areas. And then dashboards are kind of our preferred tool because they allow users to create interactive visualizations quickly. So users can ask a question and find the answer with kind of within the click and drag interface that handles most of the legwork behind the scenes, filtering the information. So in seconds, the data transforms and your questions are answered. These Tableau dashboards can be really helpful, again, to make those informed business decisions based on the hard data that we have. So we'll move into kind of a live dashboard demonstration at this point to show you how to navigate those a little bit better. Just going to switch my screen around here, just a second. Okay, so you should be seeing my browser at this point. Again, all of our data dashboards and reports are available online. And I wanted to start out just operationally, show you all of our data dashboards have page selectors at the bottom. So you'll see those numbers and arrows here where you can pick, the page and information that you'd like to go to. There's also a full screen arrow down here in the corner. I'll select that now to give you a better view. And then this is sort of the first page. It gives you a little bit more information on how to navigate. So there's some additional large buttons up here to page through each page. You'll see the visualization of the data in charts and graphs here on the right, and we'll see more on what that looks like in my examples, but you can hover over different parts of each to see additional information and numbers. To use this to find specific information, here on the left, you see filters by different characteristics and attributes. So you can click on these drop-down menus to select different characteristics, and you can select more than one at once using the control click feature. And then of course, if you put in a bunch of information and then want to clear it all, there is a reset filters button that makes it pretty easy to do that. And then there's some more information under the directions button in the full user guide. So that's just a quick overview, but you'll see as I move through our examples what that looks like in real time. So we've prepared a few different scenarios that end users might want to know as they're planning and making business decisions. So the first example is as if I'm a seaweed value-added producer and I'm considering approaching a new health food store that just opened in my town. And I know that my town is highly populated with household earners making over $100,000 per year. So my question is, how can I gather data to approach the owner of this health food store to show him that this specific demographic will try new products flavored with seaweed? So let's move to sort of the first active page of the dashboard. So you can see here on the first page, we asked consumers if they purchase or consume seaweed, starting with the basics. On average, 36% of people do. You can hover over here and see the number of respondents as well. And what we would want to do for our scenario is filter by that household income amount. So we're looking at anyone who makes over $100,000 a year. Again, you can use the control button on your keyboard and click to select multiple at once. And you'll see as I went through that, the pie charts change depending on what you select. So you can see that it jumped from about 36% to about 53%. So as you approach the health food store owner, you can say in all likelihood, about 1 of every 2 customers who walk into that food store will have purchased or consumed seaweed, and making it more likely that selling a seaweed flavored product is likely. So another example is if I was a seaweed operation and had created a new skincare product, but I was unsure of which economic region would really be the ideal target for a product launch, I could use this tool to figure that out. So we'll move through the different questions here to page 4. You'll see on page 4 the percentage of consumers who bought non-food related seaweed products. So if you hover over the pie chart, you'll see the total number of customers were around 5,400. And of those customers, 53% bought skincare products. So to see the US region that had the highest percentage, we can use the economic region filter on the left. And what you can do is kind of compare these as you go through in order to find where that percentage is the highest. So that's, a little higher going through. You can compare all the percentages. What we found was that the West, North, Central was the highest percentage with about 59%. As you move through these filters, though, you can also see this dollar amount of what their annual seaweed budget expenditure was for non-food products. And when looking at that specifically, we found that the Middle Atlantic region had the largest expenditure at about $58. So if I was considering, trying to find out my ideal target for product launch, I would probably want to target both of these areas for that skincare product. Moving into another example, if I'm a seaweed company with a really successful snack bar, but I find that my customers are all primarily women, age 18 to 24, who are single and have obtained a bachelor's degree. And I want to know more about what attributes and indicators drive their willingness to purchase my product. You can use data in this dashboard to find that as well. Going to page 8 to find that information. You'll see this includes the willingness to pay questions. And we can add all of those filters to the left-hand side menu. So we can reset our filters here, select female, 18 to 24. We're looking at marital status down here, so never married. And then we said education level, they've obtained a bachelor's degree. So you can get really granular with this, selecting as many fields as you'd like based on what you want to explore. From this, we do see that the highest attribute affecting their willingness to purchase seaweed products is that it's safe for consumption. Then it drops down a little bit to different other attributes like taste and other nutrition characteristics. And then in terms of quality certifications and indicators, certified organic and non-GMO were rated as the two highest, kind of equal there. So in terms of gathering this information, you now know that as a seaweed company, including those attributes and indicators in any marketing or branding would be important to kind of flag your product for your key customer. And then one final, a little more in-depth example. If I'm a seaweed company in early stages of business planning for a frozen meal kit company, and I've looked at this dashboard and figured out some of my key demographic of my customer profile, I could then use that information to combine different data points and kind of create a full picture of where to target those customers. So going back, I'm going to begin on page 4 and filter through this again. So reset the filters and found through this information that the highest demographic that purchases frozen seaweed products are males age 25 to 34, white or African American, located in the mountain region. So I'll plug those in. Male, age 25 to 34, and select multiple races here, and then selecting the mountain region. And you'll see how that shifted those numbers. You can see that this was the highest percentage of annual budget for frozen seaweed products. So that gives you your target demographic, and then you can plug in these same characteristics in all of the questions to target specific information. So I would then go to page 8 and plug that in to, again, see those specific attributes that that customer cares about. So let's see how that changes things here. Filter. You can get really specific. So you can see we can learn a little bit more about the customer and they're willing to purchase if they know that the product is low calorie and that's the highest rated attribute. These two are pretty similar with US Atlantic coast sourced and US sourced. So again, kind of supporting that idea that consumers do want to know where their products are from and view US sourced as the highest quality. And then you can go even further in on page 3, you can say, how do I target these consumers even more? And you can look at where they do their shopping. So we have a breakdown of different types of stores and point of purchase. And for this demographic, males age 25 to 34 in the mountain region, they most do their shopping at big box stores and supermarkets. So you can target in there. So, you know, a seaweed company preparing for a business plan for a frozen seaweed meal kit can, you know, reasonably expect their target customer to be this male age 25 to 44, both white or black, located in the mountain region, and you can gather additional information to target that customer in big box stores or supermarkets by branding the product on, you know, that US locally produced and low calorie attributes that they determined are most important to them. So that's just a few examples there. I did want to leave plenty of time to open it up and see if anyone in the Q&A had any specific attributes or filters that they wanted me to play around with here as well. So I might call in, you know, Annie and the team to see if they've seen anything that we can play around with.
We haven't seen anything yet, but if anybody has any suggestions of what they would like Tricia to load in as attributes, then please type them into the Q&A and we can make that happen.
We did have a question from one guest. Will they receive a copy of the slides? And we'll be making these available on our certainly on the MAIC website. Great.
Yes. And just going back to our third project that was still in progress, we are hoping that the dashboard that results from that project is, you know, this robust with, you know, as many filterable characteristics. And we've asked, you know, similar questions regarding finfish and shellfish. So, you know, this project with MAIC has been extremely helpful, you know, across the industry for specifically for seaweed producers and stakeholders, but hopefully we'll have some more information up on our website for others as well. I can also show just changing screens here. I can show you what our dashboard looked like for our first project in 2018-19. See here. So this was the Atlantic States project. So again, focused on finfish, shellfish, and seaweed. So there's a little bit more information to play around with here, but we did, you know, ask some of those same questions, and you can filter on similar levels here. So I can move through some of that as well. Going back to the first page here, I know I called out some of these findings pretty quickly in my presentation earlier, but you can filter here to see, you know, species preferences. This shows least to most liked. It was on a scale of 1 to 5, showing the percentages of respondents. Again, you can hover over to see specific number of people making up those percentages. And then going through, we did ask, you know, the percentage of people who do consume seafood, and of those people, how many buy it for home consumption. And then this was one of the key findings that I pointed out: consumers' willingness to pay more by production method. So you can see here the numbers for fresh and local were quite a bit higher than others, making them important for business decisions, branding, marketing. And then this is a little different. This is using, again, a more GIS spatial visualization of the breakdown of the states that we surveyed. So again, this was focused on Atlantic states. There's still a lot of great information here. And you can kind of drill in based on specific states that you want to look at. And just like another visual view, you can also select, if you click off of that, you can select specific seafood categories to see ratings. Again, it's 1 to 5 preferences. Great. Any other questions out there?
I had one quick question, Tricia. Could you talk maybe a little bit about the survey development, and if you maybe looked at any prior data studies or just kind of what went into developing this survey for folks?
Yeah, absolutely. I am, of course, our research manager. I'm not really designing and developing our surveys, especially when it gets to this level with Power BI and creating the dashboards. But all of these projects were funded by grants, federal grant money. So a lot goes into kind of that application process. Obviously we work closely with MAIC and other folks in the aquaculture industry. So to determine, what people want to know, what would be helpful to, innovate and create successful businesses. So kind of determining those projects is the first step, and then going through kind of a rigorous grant application process, which I know MAIC is familiar with the second project. And with that process, we do a lot of, literature reviews. We're looking at a lot of market research to really learn about the industries that we're working on. So, kind of briefly, that is kind of the work that we do initially to get to this point, and that kind of informs later on, like what questions we're asking. We work mostly for these projects with a third-party survey company called Dynata. So they have, their database and their platform for actually taking in the survey information. And then we're able to work with our statistician on kind of collating that data and organizing it, and then making it pretty and accessible for all on these dashboards.
And Tricia, Chris here, we also with Atlantic Corp have a seafood advisory board that have been vetting questions by, and they're composed of people from around the country, actually, that have seen the questions, which really helps to ground truth those questions.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point, Chris. A little more specific than just saying we work, across the industry with stakeholders, but there is a specific process of vetting what questions would be most helpful there. Thank you. Any other questions that I can answer, or any, specific examples that have come in?
None so far, Tricia, but please feel free, folks, to enter any last questions that you might have for Tricia.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I ran a little short, but ran through a lot of information really quickly, but I do, urge everyone to get onto these dashboards and play around with specific information that, whether it's your own geographic area or looking at trying to find out who your target customer is based on their preferences. It can really inform a lot of important business decisions. And also to be, watching for more coming out soon from us.
Thank you very much, Tricia. We much appreciate it. Just to let everyone know that what we will do is we'll build a page on the MAIC website where you can access information about this webinar, but also other webinars that will be coming up in the series. The next webinar will be on March the 17th. And I've just put into the chat a copy of the flyer so that you have the link to register for that one. And unless there's any last questions, I think we'll thank you for coming, and thank you to Tricia for your presentation. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Annie, and everyone at MAIC, and everyone tuning in.
Thank you.